Hello, everyone, and welcome to week 3. Let me take a minute or two and just kind of go through my digital age results so that way you can understand what you have from your survey. First of all, a lot of the schools that I mentioned before use this, or districts and even states use this to evaluate their teachers on the awareness of 21st century skills, the integration and the use of technology in an instructional setting. And the way we use these in Sterling is every teacher takes these each year, and it helps design, develop, shows evidence for how we're doing professional development, where our weaknesses are, where the teachers themselves feel that they're weak and want to need improvement on. And that brings me to the bars that you see. You have low level, middle level, and high level priority. The longer the bar, the more priority yourself, I repeat, you feel yourself needs in these categories. Well, you could see in mine that we have excellence in professional practice is the one area. And again, that just comes back from wanting to be a lifelong learner and always looking for ways to improve myself as a teacher and a professional development facilitator. And then below there, you'll see the levels of teaching innovation, your score, partnership for the 21st century skills. This is where a lot of states have developed or even adopted and began partners with this organization for 21st century skills across the state. You'll also kind of keep in mind that these standards are also based on National Educational Technology Standards, or the NETs, from ISTE, which I kind of touched on last week, touch on a little here, and we'll really focus on next week. And the last three areas that you see are Marzano's instructional practices, Daggett's rigor and relevance, and Webb's depth of knowledge. If you're not familiar with these three educational, instructional folks that just are highly recognized with their approach and their research to improving education, I'd encourage you to look through their resources, and you'll find their links to their resources here on the left hand side under the background. So here's Marzano's instructional practices, here's Daggett's rigor and relevance, and Webb's depth of knowledge. But really what we're going to focus on this week is going to be on the LOTI framework, which is the levels of teaching innovation. By clicking here on the LOTI framework, it's going to take you to full details excuse me, of the different levels. But the biggest things or points that I'm going to make out to you here is a LOTI level 0 means no technology is being used at all. A link that I'll share with you guys also will be the same link that I use with my face-to-face students when we work on this, and usually we'll work on this stuff in week 2. But a lot of this again is just to get you aware of what may be used to help evaluate you as a teacher, and this way you become more aware of what administrators are looking for, integration specialists are looking for, and just give you a better foot in the door and ahead of maybe the next pre-service student that's not aware of some of these things. So again, a level 0 is absolutely no technology at all. The next one's going to be a level 1. This is called awareness, and typically this is still going to be teacher-centered. And if you remember in the video last week, I touched on teacher-centered versus student-centered, as well as kind of specified that as long as students have input in content, product, or process in 2 of the 3 or all 3, that's your transition, that's your distinguishability between teacher-centered and student-centered. So in level 1, basically is who's using the technology, and is the technology just an add-on, like a reward? Well, typically you're going to find this environment where the teacher's the only one on the computers because of email, online grading, website stuff, or okay, if you get 100 on your spelling test, you can go play on the computer for 15 minutes. That's awareness. It has no direct influence on what's being taught or what you're learning as a student. Now, level 2, we're going to step it up a little. This is exploration, where you get a chance to get on the computer or some form of technology and do some exploration. This is more of like an enrichment activity or an extension to what you're trying to accomplish, rather being a cohesive piece to the whole project. One example that I'd give you for like something like a level 2 is going to be on a students holding a finish line tape at like a race. Okay, picture yourself on a race. You're running track. Each of you are in your own lane, lane 1, 2, 3, and 4. And as you come up to the finish line, the finish line tape is there, and there's a banner above it. Instead of saying finish line, it says PowerPoint. And the reason I bring PowerPoint up is a lot of people feel, or teachers feel, that the use of technology, I've integrated technology because I use PowerPoint. Well, how did you use the PowerPoint? Did the students just basically regurgitate information, or is there actually higher evidence of higher order thinking, authentic learning, the HOTS, in other words, higher thinking skills being shown there, evaluation, analysis, create, is that there? That's kind of the things you got to keep in mind is, again, lower level. Think of a KWL chart. What you know, what you want to know, and what you learned. Those, again, are going to be more of your knowledge comprehension. Level 3 is infusion. This is where the instructional focus is on higher order thinking, actual application analysis, evaluation, synthesis, creativity. How much of that is really there? How much is being used? When you think of mazes, especially, let's say, a math problem maze where you got to do math problems and find your way through those math squares, there's going to be a little comprehension and knowledge there, but you have to also analyze and synthesize. Now, there's a little more higher thinking. Also, keep in mind, the difference here, again, is level 3 is a teacher-centered, and the next level is the beginning of a student-centered approach. And keep in mind what I keep emphasizing. Students need to have input in 2, if not 3 areas: product, content, and your process. And if you want to put them in order, the content, the process, and the product. Do they have input in those? How many of those areas do they have input on? So with understanding or keeping in mind, we're talking about input, product, process. Obviously, to a degree in this class, I have to provide you some of the content, the process to a degree, and a product. But yet you're going to get input on them, because if you think about the survey that you took in week 1, which we'll focus on next week, is I asked you for things that you wanted to learn. That gives you input on content. When we take that content that you want to learn about and develop the steps, or I put out resources out there, we're going to kind of give you a project-based learning approach where I'll give you an essential question, give you some products, and you've got to go create something. But what you put in that product you create is your input. So see, I'm starting to use this without you really realizing this. And that's going to be where some teachers still want to have a little bit of that control, but yet know that the students need to be involved in their learning. They need to be helping guide what they learn and ask those questions and pursue those questions they want to ask. And that's where you'll see a mechanical to routine. Well, in a way, you guys know the routine. Log in, look at what we have for this week, follow the steps. So there is that routine. But what we want to really point out here is real world. That is why I hope that you see where I'm going with this course now is much more real world. I give you resources that are being used in the world. You are now using them in this class. Hopefully you continue to use them when you go on to other classes or into your own classroom. But you've got to choose what's appropriate for you and what's not appropriate for you. Therefore, do I have you using higher order thinking skills, analyzing, evaluating, synthesizing? Think about that. Now, expansion. This is where we're going to really employ authentic student problem solving and issues relation. Where I could really tie this in with my face-to-face students is we Skype with people and do actual video face-to-face conversations with people in Colorado, Korea, Australia, Tennessee. I mean, I could go on and on and on. And matter of fact, for those of you that are here in Kansas, Senator Bob Dole was a presidential candidate a couple times. One of the leading politicians for our state for decades. Actually video Skyped with our students, and he had never ever done a video Skype with our students or with anybody before. And he was so impressed with that simple piece of technology being used because he used to talk to the students on the phone and have students ask the questions that way, and now you can see each other. So it's almost like that TV interview that he went through, but it's now with the students, and it just adds that much more impact. And finally, refinement. It's all of these in one well-rounded product or project, with the simple fact that anything and everything you need is readily accessible. It's not on a wish list and it's not on a purchase order form. It's all readily accessible. That's the key. So with that point and touching on those and showing you the things that we've talked about on here, just the last little thing that on those results that you have here, take a look at these recommendations in the web links they also have out there for you. Those are some things that we go over with our teachers. So looking at week 3 in detail, you're going to have a discussion that's going to be an Edmodo discussion. I'll have 3 actual classroom scenarios there for you to evaluate. And you go, wait a second, evaluate? What do you mean evaluate? You get to take on the role of school administrator or the role of technology integration specialist or that facilitator that comes in and works with teachers and students, so you start to understand how to use the technology and integrate it seamlessly or transparently, as I like to say, into your curriculum. So that's going to be a discussion, and in those discussions I'm going to give you 3 classroom scenarios that you're going to use some rubrics or matrices to evaluate them. And then your writing assignment is you're going to reflect upon what you've learned, what you have seen in some of the classroom videos, as well as giving us a picture. Like if we were looking into that crystal ball and we were visiting your classroom in the future, what would we see? What are we going to hear from the students say about the learning that they are participating in within your classroom? That is going to be your blog post. So now, you're probably still kind of worried about that evaluation. Well, here's what we're going to do. You're going to use these frameworks I've given you here. This HEAT framework and LODI framework. We touched on the LODI framework. The HEAT framework, HEAT means higher order thinking, engagement, authentic learning, and technology. So if we take a look at that framework right quick, you could see I've given you, or in here they're provided some, or we've given you some of those guiding points to think about. Higher thinking skills. What are you looking for? Do you see these? Do you hear them, the students asking those questions? The key here, as we tell administrators, is don't assume. Always ask, always observe. Whether you ask the students, ask the teacher after the observation, after the lesson, the students during the lesson. Engagement, authentic connections, and your technology being used. That's kind of the framework to kind of use when you look at this videos. The other one is going to be the Lodi framework, which we looked at a little, okay? It's going to be in another poster just like this, PDF file. You guys are welcome to print both of them out if you want to. It's your choice. But these are your different levels. And of course, the Lodi sniff test. This is your kind of guideline or little prompts. Think of a writing prompt, but in this case, prompts to evaluate. Now, you're probably getting nervous about the video, so let me do this. Here's you a classroom, and I'll walk you through evaluating this actual classroom scenario.
Hi, my name is Allison Berry. I teach at Packlet Elementary School in Packlet, South Carolina. Been teaching 3rd grade for 8 years. This is my 8th year. Today we'll be completing a lesson called Food Chains. I created the Food Chains lesson to enhance my students' understanding of simple food chains. As I studied the curriculum, I thought the board and the software would give me the opportunity to enhance the concepts of food chains that sometimes is difficult for my students to understand. I used a variety of the Promethean tools to have as much interaction with my students as possible.
I really like the part where we would drag something out of the consumer word thingy, and we would drag it up to the chart where it says omnivore, herbivore, or carnivore. Doing it on the active board is much funner than just reading a book.
As notebooking is an important part of the science curriculum here at Packlet Elementary School, I wanted to include some basic terms that students could record in their notebook. So I began the lesson with some words that I thought would be important, and I also included some outside resources such as interactive websites and United streaming video clips.
If the bear's not there, it can't get you.
And at the end of the flip chart, I included some active vote questions that I use for a formative assessment. Also a review to see how well my students were comprehending the lesson. And after the flip chart lesson is concluded, I would have my students probably return to their KWL charts in their science notebooks and record what they've learned. My name is Allison Berry, and I hope that you enjoy the Food Chains flip chart, and my students really enjoy it. It makes learning meaningful, fun, and active.
Okay, so based off of that, let's take a look at these. Starting with the heat, how you are thinking. Students taking notes only, no questions asked. Well, some may have been taking notes. You know, from what we saw in that video clip, we don't know if questions were being asked. So let's take a look at this other one. Students learning or questioning at a remembering level. Now, in this case, it wasn't so much questioning, but as obviously there was remembering going on, right? They had to remember where these animals fit in, or the plants fit into the life cycle or the food chain. And then how did they fit into certain categories? Well, that would be remembering and understanding, right? One might be able to argue applying. You had to apply your previous knowledge to solve the problem, but it wasn't so much apply as in problem solve, but more as in apply as in recall or remember. So again, probably remembering and understanding for the most part where what took part. And if you keep that in mind, you're thinking of lower order thinking skills. Engage students. Well, if you look through there, students collaborate to find the task, the process, and the solution. No. So let's jump back here. Students give options to solve a teacher-directed problem, collaborate with others. Were they collaborating with others? No. Students given options to solve a teacher-directed problem. Now there you could say that they were given options, as in, choose from this word bank. And then finally, you're kind of looking at here, it says students report what they learned only, collaborate with others. Well, they may have been collaborating with others, when they were playing that game where you saw the wolf, the bear chasing the wolf. They were taking on the role of the wolf. Which brings to authentic learning is, again, the learning experience provides limited real-world relevance. I would agree with that point. Because the next one says the learning experience provides extensive real-world relevance. Well, from what we saw and we heard, all the real world that we saw was, again, I know you could say the real world were the animals and the plants because I see them out there, but did the teacher really put the kids in a situation of, now think about the food you've eaten in the last 24 hours. Design me the food chain representing that. Or, go talk with your parents and develop a timeline of a food chain. That would be real world authentic. Now, technology use. Was the technology being used by the teacher only? No. After all, the students were on the computer. Students were interacting with the curriculum content the teacher created. Now, student technology used directly connected to the task completion with the shared or limited resources. Yeah, you could say that because the teacher used the response system to assess the students. The students got up and interacted with the board. The students were on the computer. So you could say that. But let's take a look over here at your sniff test to determine the level of loading. Is technology being used? Yes. Is there evidence of content-related, higher order thinking by the students? Again, remember what we talked about with the hot or the on the heat, the higher thinking category. So you've got to make that decision. Do we go to a 3 or do we stay at a 2? So that's here to kind of help you guide you through some of those videos. And finally, this is the Lodi framework again that we kind of went over. So you could look at these things. Now, just quickly going over this video, here's a big reason by looking at Lodi level 2 or Lodi level 3 for that video. Here's the points you need to look at. Look at this one right here. Students are using technology for teacher-directed, higher level cognitive tasks. I don't think so. But again, because of the chart. Although, you might be able to say that if you were looking at the wolf, that simulation. But if you weren't looking at that, then obviously, right here, students use technology for lower level cognitive tasks, remembering and understanding. And also the other key is the KWL chart. Know what you want to know and what you learned. Again, are going to be more lower level thinking skills than higher order thinking skills. Keep that in mind. And finally, back here on your course curriculum, I've added this Florida Technology Integration Matrix and Arizona Technology Integration Matrix. Those are going to be kind of used, well, will be used in some of our Edmodo discussion. But these are what the state education departments have provided teachers in their state. So it's really kind of cool to go and look at what other states have used and taken and modified. And I'll also share some more tidbits or matrix or integration stuff that I have in Edmodo, just like I've done with some others. And then what you'll see here on this last thing, this is Web 2.0 resources. This is my extra little cherry on top of that whipped cream on top of your ice cream. So in other words, this is just a little add-on, a little extra resource out there that I just am providing you guys so you can go out and start to look at resources and determine things that you would think would be good for you. And if we take a quick look at it before I wrap things up, in this live binder, you're going to find all of these tabs in here. Have all kinds of different resources. So for example, if I go to Cool Tools for Schools, this tab opens, and then here's a teacher's wiki with all kinds of different tools that they use or recommend or provide in trainings. So you could click on here like creativity tools, and then here's all the individual tools that they talk about. For example, this classtools.net is an awesome site. I'd recommend you even taking a look at that yourself. If you wanted to go to the Cool Tools for Wiki without being in the binder but as a full page, just copy the link URL right there, paste it in your browser, and you're off and going. So again, there is our lessons for this week, and I wish you good luck. Let me know if you have any questions.